It's time for another JavaScript aside, something that's part of the JavaScript language that we need to have clear in our minds in order to understand something that we'll see in Node.js. This time, it's objects and object literals. In order to understand objects, we first need to understand name-value pairs. So, big word alert. A name-value pair. A name which maps to a value. It sounds simple. But you could have the same name being used in different contexts, but that name could only have one value. The interesting thing is that the value itself might be other name-value pairs. So for example, this is a name-value pair. The name is address, and the value is 100 Main Street. Again, very simple. And JavaScript objects are actually quite simple, because JavaScript objects, well, big word alert, object. From JavaScript's perspective, an object is nothing but a collection of name-value pairs. That's the simplest definition possible. So an object itself might have a name, and then that value might be another name-value pair, and that value might be a sequence of name-value pairs, and it might go on, nested like this. So JavaScript objects are names that are connected to values, but the values might be other lists of names and values. Another way to think about it is that an object sits in memory and points at other objects or other values. You might have primitive values like numbers and strings, objects, which are other collections of name-value pairs. And remember that functions are actually special types of objects. So the value might be a function. When a function is attached to an object, we call it a method. And really these you might think of as pointing to a particular spot or address in memory where these different properties, these different methods, that is to say these different values attached to names on the object, live. And that gets us to one more big word alert, because in JavaScript we can write in what's called an object literal. That is, when I'm typing my object, I can take a sequence of name-value pairs, separate them by commas, and surround them with a curly brace, and that's a very quick way to create a JavaScript object when I'm typing in my code. The name and the value are separated by colons, and each name-value pair is separated by a comma. Here we see the name-value pairs street, and the value main, number, and the value 100. This is an address, obviously. But then apartment is a name, and the value is another object, another collection or set of name-value pairs. The name is floor, the value is 3, the name is number, the value is 301. So I can create large object with object literal syntax. And I can also attach methods, that is, functions, to my object. Let's take a quick look. All right, here's an empty app.js file. Let's write a quick object literal. I'll create a new person, var person equals, and then I'll use curly braces, and then I'll fill my curly braces with name-value pairs separated by commas. Makes it very simple. So first name, let's say John, last name Doe, and I'll add a method that is a function. Remember, I can use a function expression to define my function, which is also a value. The name is greet, the value is the function. And this will use an output hello. We'll use the this keyword, which will point at my new person object. First name, a space, and this dot last name. Very simple. Now I can use my object literal. My object will be created in memory, and then I could say person.greet, for example, call the method. So I have a person variable, which is built an object, and this is just one syntax, one syntactic way of building an object. There are others, but it's a really fast way. And so when you have a lot of properties and methods, it can look a bit confusing, especially if there's comments in between here. So don't be confused by that. When you see these curly braces for an object literal, and you see the name-value pairs, that's all it really is. So let's go ahead and run this through Node, node app.js, and there it outputted to the console, hello, John Doe. That worked. One other thing that not everyone realizes is that I can actually access the properties and methods of an object another way other than using dot. The dot is the standard way to say, here's the object and here's the property or method I want on it. But I can also use brackets. And with the brackets, I give it a string, which is the name of the property or method. That is the name part of the name value pair. So I can console.log this, and you'll see that I can use a string. Notice I'm not doing it without quotes. That wouldn't be valid. That'd be a variable name. But I'm giving it a string, whereas with the dot, I don't have to do that. The dot knows that what comes after it is intended to be the name part of the name value pair. So person, and then I'm asking for the value attached to the name first name. So if I run this again, I saw my first.greet, and then there it outputs this property of the object, that is this name value pair, this value. So this can be very useful when I want to dynamically decide with a string what property name or method name I'm actually grabbing. All right, so this is the kind of syntax we'll be seeing a lot of. You may already be familiar with it, but we just want to have it fresh in mind as we go through the course. Let's move on.